Over the next 8 weeks, we're going to be taking you through our 8 foundations of movement. Our 8 foundations of movement are 8 different functional tests that help you identify what you need to work on the most in your body. In that, we catch the things that we see the most in people. Some people have stiff toes, some people have stiff middle backs. A lot of people have very similar physical impairments, and we want to help you identify them, along with doing a really good look at your pillar, or the muscles from your shoulders to your hips and everything in between. So the first one is called the Cowboy Sit Plus, and Mark's going to help us show that position right now. For the first part of the Cowboy Sit Plus, we're going to look at how we can load the great toe, arch, a little bit of the ankle, definitely the knee, and then see how all that responds to a bit of pressure on it. So a good cowboy sit is going to look like this. Your toes are tucked under, your heels touching your butt, and you're totally vertical. And I can hang out in this position for a decent amount of time. Now let's see what it's probably going to look a little bit more like in the clinic. Come on down, Mark. So same cues, toes are tucked under. I'm going to say, Mark, I want you to put this butt on that heel. He's going to go back and do the best he can. Then once he gets that as close as he can, he's going to sit upright as vertical as he can. Take a picture of that so you see what it looks like, because after we prep your pillar, I promise it's going to be better. But then the plus part is we're going to check dorsiflexion. For that, Mark's going to put his hand right here, put this to give us a marker, and he's going to drive his knee in front of his second and third toe while watching his heel so that it doesn't come up, and see if he can touch it. And that's pretty good. So that's the plus portion of the cowboy sit, which is our first foundation of movement. So for the second test in our foundations of movement, we're going to be looking at the hip rotation, mobility, and strength. So I'm going to ask Mark to get into a shin box position. He's going to do a left shin box. We always name the shin box by the front leg. So he gets into this position, and it's the same thing that we did with the cowboy rock, is ask him to get nice and vertical. You can see here, it's okay. Maybe it could be a little bit better, something to assess. But all we're going to do is put this leg in front and this other leg in back. So in this leg, we're checking external rotation. On the other leg, we're checking internal rotation. And it's the same 3 questions every single time. Where do you feel? What do you feel? Does it feel the same on both sides? So now for the plus part of the shin box plus. And that's where we look at the ability to produce force with the hip external rotators and the hip internal rotators. So for this, we're going to have Mark go into a little bit more walled off 90-90 shin box, but on his elbow so we don't have to worry about pinching. So Mark's going to get set up there, real nice, and he's going to have his hand so he doesn't cheat, stabilizing his pelvis, and he's going to bring this ankle up towards the sky 10 times. He'll just do it 3 times so you can see. Perfect. After that, he's going to take that hand and bring it down, stabilize here, so we're not cheating again, and bring that ankle up towards the sky. So we're checking the external rotation, force production on the front, and the internal rotation, force production on the back. The third test in our foundations of movement is a bridge squeeze. So we're going to be checking the glute function primarily. And again, with all of these, it's where do you feel? What do you feel? Does it feel the same on both sides? This is the one where feeling the same on both sides is really, really obvious. So lay down on your back. You're going to be in this bridge squeeze position. Bend your knees. Squeeze your shoes. I'm going to coach you through it real quick. Palms up. Bury the backs of your hands down into the ground. Don't forget about your thumbs. Inhale. Exhale your ribs down. At the bottom, refill a little bit. Tuck your belt up towards your chin. Pressing your bat gently into the mat. Heels into the ground, toes float up, drive up, Mark, your hips into the bridge, squeeze your right glute as hard as you can for 2 count, squeeze your left glute as hard as you can for a 2 count, squeeze your right glute as hard as you can for 2 count, squeeze your left glute as hard as you can, 2 count. 10 on each side, where, what, sides. So our 4th test for the foundations and movement is your hip flexor march. You're obviously getting the hip flexors checked out. You're also getting the anterior core and a little bit of the posterior chain on the opposite side to the leg that you're moving. I'm going to coach Mark through this. Let's see how it goes. So arms out about 45 degrees, palms up, bury the backs of your hands down into the ground, including your thumbs. Inhale real big. Exhale your ribs all the way down toward your pelvis. At the bottom, gently tuck your belt up towards your chin. Pressing the back down into the ground. Bury your right heel into the ground as hard as you can and bring your left knee as close as you can to this left shoulder 10 times to start. And then we'll do the other side. Don't forget, where do you feel, what do you feel, and does it feel symmetrical on both sides? So our next assessment in the 8 foundations of movement is a rotating plank, where we cover a lot of ground in the trunk and in the hips. We're breaking it into 2 parts, and this is the first part, which is a side plank derivative. So Mark's going to go into a side plank. He's going to go all the way up. He's going to make sure that his shoulder is stacked over his hand and that he's a plank, not a mountain, not a valley. But we're going to bias it towards the bottom leg first. So he's going to raise that top leg up. He's going to hold for 15 seconds. And then he's going to switch to an adductor plank or Copenhagen for 15 seconds as well. That's the first part of the rotating plank. Now for the next part of the rotating plank, it's going to look more like the top of a push-up position, but we're going to go one arm so we get a little bit of anti-rotation in there as well. So Mark's going to put himself in the top of push-up position, and he's going to make sure that his feet are a little bit wider than his hands. So think about lining the outside of your hand up with the inside of your foot. He's going to claw his fingers into the ground. He's going to spin his arms away from each other and push the world away. He's set up real nice there. Make sure that he's a plank, and now he's going to take his right arm and his right thigh for 15 seconds without shifting. If you don't want to be the bad person here, put a yoga block on their back so that that ends up being the one that tells them they didn't do so great. 15 seconds with the right arm, 15 seconds with the left arm back, and we're checking for that anti-rotation and trunk flexors and hip flexor and scap stability anterior. A lot of bang for your buck. For our 6th test, we're going to do what's called a wall angel, but we like to do it with a little bit of a lumbar lock, meaning that you can't cheat through your lower back as well. So we put you in this position, your hips, then your knees in front of your hips, and your feet are in front of your knees, and you're sitting up against the wall. Get all the way back to the wall as close as you can, and then give it one more good little scoot to get in there. Then, good contact, gently tuck your chin, and he's going to rotate his arms at about 90 degrees all the way back till they touch the wall behind him. Perfect. Once he gets there, he's going to bury them into the wall and then drive his hands up as he exhales. And see how close his hands get to over his shoulders. A really good test retest. Where did you feel it? What did you feel? Did it feel symmetrical? Again, against a wall, you're going to get some really good information. Take a picture before and after. For our 7th foundations of movement test, we're going to look at cervical or neck range of motion. So the first 2 that we're going to check is flexion, or bringing your chin all the way towards your chest. Whoosh. And then extension, looking all the way up and back, just at the neck. Perfect. There's only 4 more ranges of motion. We're going to have Mark turn facing away from us. First thing we'll look at is rotation. So you want to have rotation so that your nose gets to mid-collarbone. So look all the way to the left. Good. And then same thing on the right. Good. Back to neutral. And then for side bending, we say leave your shoulders where they are and bring your left ear to your left shoulder. and we'll do 3 reps of each of those. So you have your flexion, extension, rotation, and side bend, all for your cervical spine as part of our foundations of movement. The final 8th test of foundations of movement is single leg stance. 20 seconds, eyes open, 10 seconds, eyes closed. So we're gonna get Mark set up. He's gonna stand on one leg. He's gonna bring his other leg to 90 degrees, like this. Take your fingertips, plug them into the ground, and we're counting. 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 20. Great. Now I'm gonna ask him to close his eyes for 10 seconds. Boom. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He did it. Perfect. If they move their foot, if they have a huge wobble, you cut them. This gets a test score between 0 and 30. 30 is perfect. Tell us how you did below.